I was halfway through a burnt cup of break room coffee when the email hit. It pinged loud in the silence like a fire alarm. Subject line, hourly rates, internal only. I clicked without thinking. It was from Garrett, meant for HR, but he'd CC'd the entire dev team. At first I didn't even process it, just skimmed the top. Keep Miguel at $14 per hour. Clients are billed $285. He's got no leverage. Divorced, underwater mortgage, mid-40s. He'll eat the scraps. Trust me, that was me. Every word. My guts tightened so hard I thought I'd throw up. I didn't say a word. Nobody did. We just sat there, frozen. You could feel the tension crawling through the room like static. Even the office printer stopped mid-job, like it was too stunned to keep working. Then came the Outlook recall notice. Late. Useless. Garrett's office door slammed shut. One by one, people started looking at me. Not all at once, but slowly, like watching a car wreck on the side of the road. I didn't meet their eyes, just stared at my screen. My hands went cold, but my face felt hot. I moved my mouse, minimized the window, opened my IDE, tried to refocus. But the code didn't look like code anymore, just lines, shapes. Nothing made sense. All I could see was the inside of my skull, and it was filling with something cold and sharp. He'd actually written it. No leverage. Eat the scraps. He was right. I had eaten the scraps. I'd been doing it for over a year. I didn't complain. I didn't push. I just kept working and hoping for better. And he knew it. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I clenched my jaw so tight it cracked. Someone near me coughed awkwardly. A chair squeaked. The air smelled like burnt coffee, sweat, and toner. No one said anything to me. Not Garrett, not HR, not a single coworker. So I did what I always did. I kept my head down, pretended nothing happened. But something had snapped. That email wasn't a mistake. It was a mirror. And I finally saw what everyone else already knew. I wasn't part of the team. I was inventory. I clicked into my codebase again, hand trembling over the mouse, and started typing. Complete nonsense, just to keep my fingers moving, just to not sit there and break. Across the office, Garrett's blinds snapped shut. Fine. He'd made one mistake. He thought I'd just swallow it. I didn't walk into Corvault thinking it was going to be some dream job. I was 44, broke, and desperate. That's it. 3 years earlier, I'd tried to run my own tech startup. Thought I had a shot. Burned through every dollar I had trying to keep it afloat. Maxed the cards. Pulled from my 401k. Watched it all circle the drain. Then the investors bailed. The servers crashed. And my wife, Kelly, packed up and left. Took our daughter Grace and moved in with some chiropractor in Nevada. Said she was tired of living with a loser who always had a plan but never a paycheck. I lived in a one-bedroom near Modesto. Drove a Tacoma with one working speaker, and ate frozen burritos 5 nights a week. I didn't need pride, I needed income. So, when I saw the job post for a junior dev at Corvault Systems, I clicked apply. Didn't care if it was a step down. Didn't care that I hadn't worked in tech in 3 years. I submitted the application and followed up twice before someone even called me back. It was Garrett who finally did. First thing he said was, "Your GitHub's a little dusty, but your repo notes don't suck." I said, "I'll work hard." He laughed like that was cute. Then brought me in for an interview. Their office was in a converted strip mall next to a vape shop and a cash advance place. Inside was all glass desks, buzzwords on the walls, and plants already turning brown. Garrett wore a salmon-colored button-down and had veneers so bright I could see my reflection when he smiled. He pointed at a photo on his desk of some yacht and said, "We hustle hard, we play hard." That's me in Cabo. I just nodded. He offered me the job the next day. $14 an hour. Said I'd be technically junior, but with potential. "You've been out of the game," he said, "but I like comeback stories. We're a family here I should have walked, but I didn't have insurance, and Grace needed braces. I'd been dodging the orthodontist calls for 2 weeks. Plus, I was behind on utilities. One more missed payment and the power company was going to flip the switch. So, I took it. No negotiating, no questions. They stuck me at a workstation wedged between the supply closet and the bathroom hallway. The laptop they gave me sounded like it wanted to die every time I opened more than 3 browser tabs. The keys stuck. The charger sparked if you bumped it. No onboarding, no welcome, just a sticky note with a login and a post-it that said, Bug list in Jira. Ask Devin if stuck. The kitchen had free coffee, if you called that watery sludge coffee, and expired granola bars that somebody dumped into a plastic bin labeled Team Fuel. Nobody showed me where the bathroom was. I found it by accident while trying to find an outlet that didn't short out my charger. The first time I saw Garrett after onboarding, he was walking out of a meeting room, holding a cigar case and laughing with one of the sales guys. He stopped when he saw me, gave me a thumbs up like I was a middle schooler at a science fair, then walked off. I went back to my desk and opened the bug list. It was like digging through a digital junkyard. Half the tickets were 5 years old. The rest didn't even have proper descriptions. No one talked to me that first week. Not really. Someone passed me a stale donut during a morning stand-up and said, "You're the new old guy, right?" I nodded. That was it. Most of the other devs were younger, wore hoodies, kept AirPods in, and typed like they were racing the devil. I felt like a ghost in work boots, but I showed up. Every day. Early. Stayed late. Didn't complain. The next week, another project lead dumped a corrupted reporting script on me and said, "If you can't fix it, just pretend we never offered it." I fixed it. I also built an auto-clean tool so it wouldn't break again. That one got passed around quietly like some kind of cheat code. Before long, people started showing up at my desk. Always low-key, always checking over their shoulder. "Hey Miguel, you got a sec? Hey man, this API's throwing 500s. Mind taking a look? Between us, how screwed are we if this doesn't ship today?" At first I thought I was just being used again. But after a while I realized I was the guy they came to when everything was on fire. I was the cleanup crew. One time, I caught two project managers arguing near the Keurig. One said, "Just get Miguel to do it, he'll fix it." The other laughed and said, "Yeah, the $14 genius." I pretended I didn't hear, but I started watching, listening more, picking up on the billing chatter during meetings. They kept saying things like custom back-end support, high-priority clients, and hourly rate justification. One Friday afternoon, I followed a thread someone left open on Slack, found a PDF invoice meant for Tempra Logistics. I clicked. $300 an hour. Senior architecture consultation? My name was on the work log. Garrett had been billing clients almost 20 times what I was being paid, and they were eating it up. No questions. Just charging corporate cards like it was monopoly money. 6 months in, I finally knocked on Garrett's door. First time I'd ever done that. He was leaning back in his chair, AirPods in, watching some golf highlights. I said, "It's been 6 months. I'd like to talk about a raise." He tapped his keyboard, pulled up some spreadsheet, and gave me that polished smile. Tight quarter. You know the game I didn't move. I just stood there. He looked at me like I was being unreasonable. "You're doing solid work, Miguel, no doubt. But budgets are what they are." Right then, his assistant walked in with a leather folder. Garrett popped it open and pulled out a receipt. $600 on scotch and ribeyes from some steakhouse downtown. He handed it to her and said, "Expense this under client dev." I left without saying a word. Back at my desk, someone had left me a new ticket, broken search functionality. Client was furious. I opened the bug, then opened a blank file. That's when the real work started. I stared at that blank file for a long time. Then I opened a notebook, flipped past a dozen old grocery lists and shut-off notices, and started sketching. I didn't even know what I was drawing at first, just boxes and arrows and rough ideas that had been kicking around in my head for months. Stuff I'd seen Corvault screw up over and over again. Bad data flow, clunky logic, half-baked integrations. I wanted to build something leaner, cleaner, faster. No bloated nonsense, no fake features, just solid back-end bones with an interface that didn't look like it came from 2007. I called it Forge. That night, I stayed up till 3, coding in my garage with a space heater buzzing under the table. My setup was an old desktop I built from recycled parts, stuff I pulled out of e-waste bins and fixed with YouTube tutorials. The monitor had a cracked corner, and the keyboard had 3 missing keys. Still worked. The next day, I did what I always did. Showed up at Corvault, fixed broken things, stayed quiet, collected scraps. But every bug I fixed for them gave me ideas for Forge. Corvault's login system crashed twice a week, so I built one that didn't. Their search engine returned garbage. I wrote one that made sense. They used 5 different APIs to do what should have taken one. I streamlined it. I'd leave work, grab a gas station burrito, and head straight back into the garage. That little space started to feel like mine again. It smelled like motor oil and burnt plastic, but it was mine. 2 weeks in, I texted an old buddy from high school, Troy. He used to be lead UI at some fancy agency until they gutted their dev team. Divorced, too. Living out of a 2-bedroom rental in Merced with lawn chairs for furniture. I sent him a screenshot and said, "Want to help build something that might not suck?" He called me that night. We weren't trying to be the next big thing. We weren't even thinking about money. We just wanted to prove we could still do real work. Work that wasn't buried under buzzwords and bull. He handled design. I handled the engine. Every night we worked until our wrists hurt. Bluetooth speakers blasting Tool and early Foo Fighters. Downing $3 energy drinks like we were in our 20s again. We kept Forge under wraps. Not out of fear, but because it wasn't ready. I didn't want half of Corvault's dev team sniffing around just to copy it and slap their name on it. Troy agreed. We kept it tight. At work, I acted normal, quiet, helpful. Still the guy who made himself useful. But everything I fixed, every bug I untangled, I studied it, asked myself, why did this break? What made this fragile? Then I'd go home and make sure Forge wasn't built the same way. It wasn't just about revenge. Not yet. It was about building something that respected the work, that didn't treat developers like mop buckets or hourly robots. A system that didn't need a Garrett. We didn't have funding, marketing, or flashy logos, but we had each other, busted backs, and decades of experience they didn't think we still had in us. And brick by brick, line by line, we made Forge real. The next Monday started like hell. I was elbows deep in back-end logs when Garrett popped his head out of his office and barked, "Miguel, conference room 2. Now, bring your laptop, no explanation." I walked in to find a half-dozen suits around the table, and Garrett's idiot nephew sweating bullets in front of a frozen demo screen. Tempra Logistics. I recognized the logo from the Slack chatter. Big name, real money. Garrett was red in the face. The nephew looked like he was gonna cry. "It was working earlier," he mumbled. Garrett pointed at me like I was a fire extinguisher. "I fix it." No pressure, right? I dropped my bag, plugged in, didn't say a word. Just started digging. Took about 3 minutes to figure out the dumbass had deployed a broken build without clearing the cache. I killed the local server, relaunched the stable version, and relinked the API key he'd overwritten with dummy data. The screen came back to life, charts animated, buttons worked. Clients leaned in. Garrett smiled like he did something. I stayed standing in the back, hands in my pockets. After the meeting, as people filed out, this woman stayed behind. Mid-40s, sharp suit, sharp eyes. She looked at me like she was studying a piece of machinery, polished but not soft. "Erica Blake," she said. "CIO at Tempra." I nodded. "Miguel." She held out a card. Not the generic one with the Tempra logo. Her personal one. Just her name and number. "Let's talk," she said. Then she left. No smile, no fluff. I stuffed the card into my back pocket and went back to my desk like nothing happened. That night, she called. I was in the garage cleaning up some code in Forge. She didn't waste time. "How long have you been at Corvault?" "A little over a year." "What do they pay you?" I told her. She went silent. Long enough that I checked the screen to see if the call dropped. Then she said, "That's criminal." I said, "Yeah." "I know." "You ever think about leaving?" she asked. "Every day." There was a pause. Then she said, "I want you to send me something. Not Corvault's junk. Show me what you're really building." I didn't say yes, not right away. My heart was hammering so hard I could barely hear her. But I didn't say no either. A week later, I sent her a sanitized demo of Forge. No logos, no names, just raw functionality. She replied in under 10 minutes. "This is better than half the crap I'm paying for. When can we talk in person?" I met Erica 2 days later in a glass-walled WeWork downtown, 4th floor, corner conference room. She wore the same sharp suit from the pitch meeting. I wore the only button-down I owned that didn't smell like garage dust and regret. I'd barely slept the night before, had stress sweats, heart pounding through my ribs. My fingers trembled when I plugged in the HDMI. "Show me Forge," she said. I didn't give her the pitch deck. I didn't have one. I just launched the dashboard, and I walked her through it, start to finish. How the real-time data updates worked, how the code stripped out legacy bloat, how every tool was modular, scalable, and simple enough for non-tech clients to actually use without breaking it. She barely said a word, just nodded slowly, arms crossed, eyes locked on the screen. I kept waiting for her to pick it apart, tell me it wasn't enterprise enough, that it wasn't secure, that it needed more features. She didn't. When I finished, she looked at me and said, "When can you implement this for us?" 2 weeks, that's what I told her. Didn't think, didn't check my calendar, just said it. She smiled, barely, and said, "Send me a proposal by tonight." I walked out into the parking garage and sat in my truck for 10 minutes, with my hands gripping the wheel like it might float away. Couldn't even start the engine. I was still shaking. I drove home, opened my laptop, typed up the cleanest proposal I could in Google Docs, and hit send before I had time to overthink it. Then I printed out my resignation. Black ink on cheap paper. Next morning, I waited until Garrett was back from whatever overpriced lunch he was at. I stepped into his office, shut the door, and handed him the envelope. He didn't open it right away, just leaned back, smug as ever. "What's this?" he asked. "My resignation." He snorted. "Forge? That your little pet project?" I didn't blink. Erica Blake saw it. His smirk slipped. "You're bluffing," he said. I folded my arms. "We'll see." He opened the envelope, skimmed it, then tossed it onto his desk like it was nothing. "You leave now, you'll burn every bridge here." "Already torched," I said. "You just didn't smell the smoke." I left his office, walked straight to my desk, shut down my laptop, and packed up the 5 things I owned that weren't company issued. A stress ball, a broken phone charger, and a sticky note with Troy's number on it. I nodded to the 2 devs by the printer who gave me that "You serious?" look. Didn't speak. Didn't need to. My hands were still shaking when I hit the parking lot. But it was done. I'd taken the shot. By the time I woke up the next morning, Garrett had already gone nuclear. 3 people I used to work with messaged me within an hour. Gone. No warning, no explanation. Just pack your desk, and a weird silence on Slack. Then he posted some vague all-hands message in the Corvault channel. In times like these, loyalty matters more than ever. Some people forget who gave them a chance. Someone forwarded it to me with the comment, "Guess who he means?" Not subtle, not smart either. Then the emails started. A couple clients I'd worked with messaged me directly asking what was going on. Said Garrett told them I stole Corvault's code, that Forge was a ripoff, that I'd violated company IP, and they'd be pursuing serious legal action. I didn't panic. I called my lawyer. She reviewed the Corvault contract and said the words I needed to hear. There's no non-compete. And if you built it off the clock, it's yours. Which I did. Every damn line of Forge was written in my garage on my own machine. While Garrett was off golfing or drinking $600 scotch, I was wiring my own product from the ground up. Erica backed me hard. Said, "Let them make noise. We'll move Tempra over in 10 days. And she did. Within a week and a half, Tempra Logistics dropped Corvault completely. We onboarded them onto Forge in stages. Troy and I barely slept. We were doing 14-hour days in a folding chair office space with loaner monitors and microwave noodles. Didn't matter, it worked. The second they flipped the switch, Tempra's CTO posted about it on LinkedIn, called Forge faster, smarter, and more responsive than anything we've used before. Tech blogs picked it up within hours. One headline read, "Underpaid developer builds better system from garage." Garrett lost it. He filed a lawsuit, IP theft, breach of contract, corporate sabotage, whatever that's supposed to mean. Full shotgun blast of desperation. It dragged out for 2 months. In court, my lawyer laid it out clean. No non-compete, no overlap in code. I'd built Forge on nights and weekends, using my own hardware, off the clock. She even pulled timestamps from Git commits and surveillance footage from Corvault showing I wasn't on site. The judge didn't take long. Case dismissed. Garrett's lawyer tried to spin it like a learning experience. The judge called it a waste of time, but the damage was done. just not to me. Corvault's name hit every newsletter in the valley, and not in a good way. Clients started asking questions. Devs started walking. I saw a Reddit thread from a current employee. Garrett's losing it. Feels like the ship's going down. He thought dragging me through the mud would bury me. Instead, he buried himself. I didn't build Forge to ruin Corvault. I just wanted to get paid what I was worth. Maybe stop eating lunch in the truck bed with the windows cracked and a melting protein bar. But Garrett kept swinging, and every punch landed on himself. 3 months after the lawsuit got tossed, we had 6 paying clients. 2 of them came straight off Corvault's books. I didn't poach them, didn't have to. They reached out, said they were tired of getting invoices for services that broke every other week. That same Friday, Garrett resigned. Their board sent out one of those limp statements about leadership restructuring and a renewed focus on transparency. I read it with my morning coffee and didn't even finish the article. Grace came to visit that weekend, first time in a while. She was taller, more opinionated, had some of her mom's fire. We drove over to the office, still part co-working space, still smelled like printer toner and stress. But it was ours. I introduced her to Troy. He handed her a black Forge hoodie from a box under his desk. She threw it on over her hoodie and grinned. "This is way cooler than your old job," she said. I just smiled and nodded. I wanted to freeze that moment, the sound of her voice, that look in her eye like maybe I wasn't some washed-up screw-up anymore. That same week, I paid off my back taxes, got my driver's license reinstated, bought a used Tacoma with cash, no financing, no interest, no repo guy checking my driveway at night. Garrett still talks about me in the industry, calls me ungrateful, says I stabbed him in the back after he gave me a shot. I know because people forward me the emails. I read them sometimes for fun. They're filled with that same smug tone he always used when he thought he was untouchable. But it doesn't matter, because people know the truth now. And more than that, they saw it happen. The guy he thought would eat scraps ended up building something better. My revenge wasn't shouting. It wasn't lawsuits or speeches or dramatic exits. It was code. Real code. While Garrett sat in his glass office counting watches, I was in a garage building the system that would replace his. And I didn't need to burn his bridge. He walked off it himself.